May I request everyone behind to please take your seats. May I request Chirag Bhai to please escort the chief guest to the dais. Thank you, Mr. Kamath, for honoring us with your presence. May I say just 2 lines for you? तुम आ गए हो तो कुछ चांदनी सी बातें हों, तुम आ गए हो तो कुछ चांदनी सी बातें हों, ज़मीं पे चांद कहाँ रोज रोज उतरता है. Thank you so much for honoring us with your presence. I request Chirag Bhai to.
A very good evening to everybody and welcome to the 76th founding day of this august organization, Bombay Chartered Accountants Society. Friends, when there was a discussion for the founding day session, everybody clicked in the OB and others to have no other than Padma Bhushan, Shri Kamath ji. Kamath ji is because he has been distinct honor and privileged to have them as a chief guest for today's event. Mr. Kamath, one point to start with is he is also entered 76th year of his age and life, and we are also entering 76th years now. Mr. Kamath is a towering figure in the world of finance and banking, known for his visionary leadership and transformative contributions. As a former CEO and managing director of ICICI Bank, he played a pivotal role in shaping it into one of the India's leading financial institution today. His illustrious career has been marked by relentless pursuit of excellence, innovative thinking, and unwavering commitment to integrity in profession. Beyond his remarkable achievement in the banking industry, Mr. Kamath has also served as a president of New Development Bank of BRICS, further solidifying his reputation as a global financial leader. His insight and strategic acumen have not only influenced the banking sector, but have also left indelible mark on the broader landscape of economic development of financial stability of our country. In recognition of his outstanding contribution, Mr. Kamath has also been honored with numerous accolades, including the prestigious Padma Bhushan, one of the highest civilian awards one can get in India. Sir, your journey has been inspiration to many, and your forward-looking approach continues to shape the future of finance. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, I would like to join your hands in welcoming Padma Bhushan Shri Kamath to our 76th founding day as the chief guest. Thank you, sir. Sir, on behalf of you, as a token of love and affection, we are planting certain trees on behalf of you on this occasion of your acceptance as our chief guest. May I request Anand Bhai to present. So when we thought about this topic of Viksit Bharat and role of accounting and finance professionals, we could have no other than Mr. Kamath to guide us on this path. India is moving towards that path, and in fact, even today morning, BCS had organized and closed our invite meeting on Viksit Bharat overall, not only finance professional, but certain discussions on Viksit Bharat where stalwarts from different era were called, industry, finance, markets, everywhere, and we had a discussion where what could be the suggestions which we can give to the ministry or the PMO for India being a Viksit Bharat, taking it positively. So none other than in the evening now we have him to talk on the role of accounting and finance professionals on Viksit Bharat. I also thank Raman Bhai for moderating a fireside session which we are having today with Mr. Kamath. And Raman Bhai needs no introduction at BCS for sure. He has been past president of the society in 2015 and 16, and I think one of the best tenure of journal committee as a chairman and editor from 2017 to 2022, where we saw a lot of different kind of articles and editorial pages from Raman Bhai. So thank you, Raman Bhai, for accepting our request, and I hand it over to you to take this session forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chirag. Thank you, Anand. Chirag, this is his concluding year as the president, and Anand is the incoming president.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for sparing this time and accommodating us at our 76th founding day.
Delighted. Thank you.
Mr. Kamath, as we all know, and of course welcome everyone who are joining us online on this webcast as well. Good evening, friends. Namaskar. Mr. Kamath, as Chirag mentioned, is synonymous with banking and finance sector, which is the artery of, the whole economy. So, the money, which is the blood that flows through it and makes all the transformation. So in that sense, he has been, a witness and has seen so much transformation that our country has gone through, and has also been instrumental in participating in this transformative change over last more than 5 decades. In that sense, I thought Mr. Kamath is an intergenerational witness of India's transformation. And if one has to introduce him through generations, and Nilesh Bhai mentioned about several generations, and I see from younger lot all the way to, those who are baby boomers. And if we see from that angle, for Gen Z, who are below 27, he has been, they would know him as non-executive chairman of GEO. They would have seen him as, Infosys chairperson, and also leading the BRICS Bank. For the previous generation, the millennials, they know him as, the founding CEO and MD of ICICI Bank, who led tremendous transformation in terms of technology especially. And for Gen X, people like me and many of my colleagues, past presidents, they know him from the ICICI Corporation days, when we used to look at the annual reports and study the numbers. Despite that, Mr. Kamath is a very young banker, because he represents one of the youngest financial services company in the country. So I request all of you to once again welcome Mr. Kamath.
Thank you.
Friends, in 1947, we were 4th largest economy as per Angus Madison, who is the author of the study on world economies right from year 1. By the 70s, we were 10th largest. And in 95, we were out of top 10. And today, we are staring at being number 3 in the global ranking. With that background of, everyone here, and as we sit together this evening with Mr. Kamath, we would look at Viksit Bharat and the role of accounting and finance professionals. So we have about 50 minutes or so, and we would have generous time for questions as well. So save your questions when it's time to ask questions. Mr. Kamath, being an insider into banking and financial services, being in ICICI as well as with ADB and BRICS, you have been in the cockpit as well as in the ATC, if I can use those analogies. I would request you to give some opening comments and tell us a little bit about how it was growing up in India at that time for our younger lot.
Thank you. Firstly, I'm delighted to be here this evening to share maybe some of my experiences and talk about Viksit Bharat. And then to the extent I can, we will overlay, what could be the role of the accounting profession in this new India of 1947, 2047 going forward. Well, I grew up in Bangalore, a small town. My exposure to finance and accounts happened very early. So I want to share that. It happened before even my formal management studies. When I was doing my engineering, my dad used to have a small SME, manufacturing roofing tiles, and he had other engagements, and I used to, on a day-to-day basis, look after it. And you can understand the challenges of a small SME of circa 1960s. So, you have to be very careful, making sure that your P&L was right, your balance sheet was right, your drawing power was right. Some phrases which probably have fallen out of use, drawing power, those days it was relevant. So, running your books every month to make sure that you are on the right track, I think came in early. And then a little bit I learned in IIM Ahmedabad. But my first exposure to finance came when I joined ICICI in 71. Because on the very first project, I had, there were teams. And typically the team had an engineer and a CA. So I had a CA, I still remember. Mr. M.V. Shah was my colleague. And from him, I learned most of the formal things that I would then use in my later career. Basically projecting numbers, whether it's a P&L, cash flow, and a balance sheet, analysis of ratios, studying past balance sheets, the importance of notes, and all the things that you take for granted, I learned from this colleague of mine, Mr. Shah. And similarly, on the other side of the table, it was always interesting meeting chartered accountants who represented the company or were, actually presenting a proposal to me or going on. So there I remember again, my very first year, somebody that most of you would have heard of, may not have known of who, I worked on several projects, him sitting on the other side, was a gentleman called D.N. Chaturvedi, DNC, who of course was at that time with Reliance, and the proposal was a Reliance proposal. When I was the young officer, maybe 24, 25, on this side of the table. You learned a lot from such doyens. Then my journey with, I would say, of learning continued. And I must share this because part of what I will say when you ask me this question of the role of accountants and finance, I think it's going to be very closely interwoven with technology as we go to the next 25 years or so. It'll be, I would almost dare say that it'll be difficult to differentiate where accounting stops and where technology comes in, and how will the profession use technology. In some other context I have said the CEO of the future will have to be a technology architect. And there I want to say that this is nothing new. Chartered accountants being technology architects is nothing new. My early years in ICICI, early 80s, we were setting up the leasing division of ICICI, and I decided that I was heading it, being set up new, that it would run as an independent profit center, and it would keep its own books, and it would basically run its own accounts and its business on a machine. It was the first machine that came into ICICI. It was a small computer. I won't go into the details of it, but it is probably 1,000th or 100,000 the power of the device in your pocket. That was the sort of machine that we had. And the people who actually made it dance, I use the word made it dance, we didn't have an IT department. So you could run everything yourself, even in the early 80s, 82 or so, where 2 or 3 chartered accountants who came in, I still remember, getting the spreadsheets right, getting DBase going on, get the data going on, and then having WordPerfect do your Word programs, merging all these 3 things to run everything in a virtually paperless mode, going back over 40 years. The credit goes to chartered accountants. I'll name them today because I want to recognize them. As Mr. Nagesh Pinge, there was Harsh Rungta. 2 of them who helped, I would say, actually bring technology to ICICI. And they were the first technology architects of ICICI. Of course, thereafter, you meet and work with a lot of technology, with a lot of chartered accountants with technology. And one of them is my colleague here, Abhishek Patak, who is here and who is a chartered accountant and has been with me from ICICI and through my BRICS time in China and now back here at Jio. So it's a close bond with the chartered accountants. That's what I was trying to say. And I was also trying to make this point that what will come, the technology linkage think is not something new. I think the profession is more than capable of doing it. In my experience, they have done it already.
Thank you, sir. Before we go to the Viksit Bharat aspect, we would love to hear from you, what were your learnings from that whole experience of driving execution of technology into banking? And that would have meant lot of decisions and tremendous amount of execution. If you would want to share with us some of the things you learned and that shaped you as a leader.
Yeah, I think this again, in a way, what I talked about just now was the 80s, the experience in the 80s. And my exposure to technology continued because about 86 or so, Mr. Wagul, when he was the chairman and CEO, we decided to actually bring technology to the whole of ICICI. And I actually did that exercise for ICICI. So by 88, we had, it was a technology-run bank or a development bank. And then I went to the Asian Development Bank for 8 years. And then when I came back, I found that there was technology, but it had not evolved. So the evolution in technology then in ICICI happened post 96. But as ICICI, the corporate lender, technology was required primarily in, I would say, the accounting side of business, and in actually making projections and so on. Nothing more than that was involved. But then when we started looking at the bank and the merger, and we had by now around 2000, that's when you needed technology in a big way. And there are some interesting ways in which technology had to be embraced. And this sort of thing will happen in the future, whether with AI or others. So, and I'll give you this instance where we were a bank, 150 branches, and we were being given 50 new licenses a year. And the largest bank, of course, was the State Bank of India. At that time, they had 10,000 branches. So I said, at 50 branches a year, it will take us 200 years to get to be the size of State Bank of India. So you need to do something different. So we said, the only thing that we could do different, which was not regulated, and the regulator would not have a problem, was technology. So I said, how many ATMs are there? There's 100 ATMs in the country. I said, do you think people will use it? The people in the bank said, we don't think so. People are scared of the machine. I said, no, I have no option but to put machines. So let's see what happens. We said, we'll launch 1,000 ATMs in 1 year. The year was 2001, or we said 1,000 ATMs in 1 year. We put 1,000 ATMs in 1 year. And within the first 3 months, we found that actually withdrawals from the machine, there are more than 1,000 withdrawals a day on a machine, each ATM. Whereas in the US, they said, if you, the ATM, there are 300 withdrawals, that's about the peak. But Indians, we were withdrawing 1,000, some even more number of withdrawals. And of course, we expanded. So that was in fact the first phase of technology. Then we said, why not we re-engineer the branch? Because the branch, I'm sure the elders in the room would have seen branch audits. Branch audit was a thing that happened because you audited the branch, because the branch was a standalone unit with its own books of account. Whereas now the younger generation, if you say branch audit, they're going to say, what are we talking of? What are we talking of? What's a branch audit? Because everything is centralized, it's on a machine somewhere. So we moved stuff out of the branch into a back office, and I got that as a center. But the speed at which change happened, and that's also going to happen between now and 47. Okay, this is 2002, and I'll give some metrics. Prior to 2000 to 2001, 95% of the transactions that happened in ICICI Bank happened in the branch, 95 or 96%. By the next 1.5 years, that fell, the transaction in the branch fell to 25%. So people were doing things on their own, and then of course call center came, which also has now become more or less obsolete, and the back offices have become obsolete with straight-through processing. So in a span of 5 years, technology was fully embedded, and there were, I would say, programs available in India, technology available in India, and since we were pioneers, at that stage we could run technology at maybe 1/10 the cost of any bank anywhere in the world, because it was, you had different hardware which was much cheaper, not the mainframes of the past, and you used local vendors like a Nickel from Infosys or a TCS or so. Things became much more affordable for a bank and for the public. So from there, went on, and I don't think the progress of technology has stopped. It will continue.
Yeah, and especially with what is happening with the NPCI and the QR code payments.
We have
what
seen
we are
that.
seeing today is just
We have
literally
seen
out of
that.
this world.
I didn't even talk about it because that pace of change is breathtaking, because we're talking of just 2020 to today. It has virtually revolutionized the way payments are made by individuals and corporations.
In 2016, apparently there were just 1 lakh payment in October 16.
Indeed.
And today I think there are about 1 billion payments a day.
Indeed.
Sir, if we move to the idea of Viksit Bharat, if you can tell us, in your view, what are the characteristics? It's a word that we use quite a lot. It's the word that we hear quite a lot. But how do we imagine the characteristics, the features of what that means to all of us who have seen a lot of past and who are witnessing what's happening today?
Yeah, I think I will talk about this, but to summarize it in a couple of sentences, is basically a developed country. That is what Viksit Bharat to me would mean. Now, we need to look back to understand what will happen here at a few, I would say, data points. And the first data point probably is Japan. Japan of the 60s, where the yen was at 350 to the dollar, and over the next 25 years, by late 80s, Japan was a fully developed country, and Japan, the yen became, 80 or 90 to the dollar, because it has weakened in the last 2 years or so. But that, to me, is the transformation that first comes to mind in terms of rapid development taking place. The next stage of rapid development, so that we can visualize what happens when Viksit, that stage we reach, is basically the Asian tigers of that time, South Korea et al., the way they transformed over the next 25 years. The next really is China, if you look at the developmental process. From 2000, where the difference wasn't too much between India and China, the way they grew. And you today can see the impact of that on that country, what it has meant in terms of rural development, in terms of urban development, in transportation networks, in terms of access to various things that the people want and so on. So I think that's what we will achieve in good time. And as we go along, we will talk about what drives Viksit Bharat, what will drive Viksit Bharat, what are the anchors. But clearly, I think there are these or three set of examples, Japan, the Asian tigers, China, which have transformed in our lifetimes. For most of us, the young people, of course, have not seen all three. They saw them as developed countries. But otherwise, we have seen this transformation happen. I am quite sure that we will get there. We will get there, and we'll see the progress daily. And I'll just give, if you were to just look at it, if you try to imagine Mumbai next year, once all the infrastructure is in place, how will it look? It's still not going to be enough, but how will it look? With just the Eastern Freeway, with just the Atal Setu now, with the new metros coming up, and now the coastal road coming up. Imagine all this is in place, and what difference will it make? Of course, they are talking of many more tunnels and so on. I think development in basic infrastructure is going to be the first change that you will see in a Viksit Bharat. And Mumbai is going to be one of the first examples where we will feel it. Today, to drive from Worli, the daytime to Nariman Point, it is Marine Drive, from where Worli Sea Face is 8 minutes. 2 years back, if you were told that, you would think I am dreaming. It's not going to be possible. So we're going to do vast. Let me put another metric. Today, if you basically join the toll road, Pune toll road, exit at or entry at Pune, and come to VT, just try to imagine how many signals do you come across. Virtually none. Because after Pune exit, You have no signals. You are coming up to VT and getting the first signal. And now with the TransLink from Worli Seaface, from the bridge to the Atal Setu point, Sivri, that coming up, you can come from Pune to Marine Drive with no signals. So that to me is a sort of seamless development, and not just in Mumbai. This development will happen in every city, it will happen in every town, and will pervade down to every village. So from the village up, I think we will see this development, and that is to me, I would say, a very visible sign of Viksit Bharat.
So you said that, infrastructure would be the biggest cylinder that will sort of fire. But alongside, what would be perhaps 2 or 3 other areas which we can see in next 5-10 years that will really propel the economy in a big way?
Yeah, I talked about infrastructure because infrastructure becomes the first building block. And infrastructure has got 2 economic benefits. Infrastructure adds to GDP during the implementation phase. Because just imagine, for all these things that I talked about for Mumbai, you multiply it across from the villages of India, 600,000 to the cities. Look at the building aggregates that you require, steel, cement, glass, etc., 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 that you would require to build this thing. And those get used. So that capacity gets set up, and that's during the building phase. And consumption is in the infrastructure transformation that is happening or addition that is happening. But after the infrastructure is built, there is the next phase, and that's a very long phase of 15, 20, 25 years, where you use the infrastructure, and now there is the benefits, the economic benefits of having put in that infrastructure. So this is going to be, I would say, a virtuous cycle, where initially during the act of building you will grow, and then post-implementation you will have other benefits that will happen as you go along. So infrastructure becomes a building block. Thereafter, during the implementation, you get all these other drivers of the economy. See, and I call these as the others as the lag. At the forefront is infrastructure. So if you imagine this as a train, that's the engine, and everything else are the various bogies behind it. So growth and personal development in terms of economic benefits all follow. So if you were to look at in the Indian context, if you go back just 25 years, the real change happened around 2000 when the golden quadrilateral started getting built, one. And at the same time, you had the software sector take off. So the white collar employment happened. So the white collar employment put money into the hands of people, and people then could spend. And you had that cycle of growth happening from around 2000 to 2008-9, which was driven by good degree of investment in infrastructure and other areas, plus a whole lot of consumption. So here in this cycle, as you see infrastructure happening, the fruits of infrastructure being seen, wealth will increase. And that wealth will drive consumption. And when I see wealth increase, it is not only at the top end. I'm talking of wealth increase. To me is what is the difference that happens in the life of the villager. And that to me will signify the development process. And that will drive the virtuous cycle again. So 2 virtuous cycles, one driven by infrastructure, and then the fruits of infrastructure which will touch everybody, and that will drive growth.
Very important points. I think somebody had said how earlier if there was a truck taking 7 days to reach Delhi, today he can perhaps do 3 rounds of that, and therefore the whole cycle for the truck driver or the truck owner changes dramatically, and that will have a cascading effect all through the economy. Sir, we are also at, if we look at the per capita aspect, we are still at $2,800 or thereabouts, and in PPP terms, even if we calculated $11,000 to $12,000, our ranking is pretty low, above 100 amongst all countries in 2024. And with our population, we perhaps need to grow at 4x the speed that we are growing. And I have heard you say that 10% growth is very much possible. So we would love to hear from you, how do we bridge that gap, and what will be the focus and what should be the velocity of that transformation in the coming 23 years?
Yeah, I think it's a very important point, because otherwise, if we don't answer this question, we are talking, in the air, as it were. So let's put it into context. Yes, 10% is an aspirational growth number, but then you need to understand whether it is possible or not possible. And if it is possible, why is it possible? Let me first answer why sometimes it becomes only aspirational, doesn't get developed. It gets aspirational and doesn't get developed because there is nothing to actually put in. There is nothing new to put in. So infrastructure growth won't happen. So if you take, I cited China earlier. All the infrastructure that was needed for the size of population, I think, is already in, because they grew at that rapid pace. So going forward, trying to put additional infrastructure in is going to be a challenge. And it will be a challenge for most countries at their level of development. But we don't have that challenge. We have got infrastructure to be put in for definitely the next 25 years. It will take us that long to put it in. And then if you go back and calculate whichever metric that you want, you want urban development, you want transportation, each and everything you can add up as to what is the need for infrastructure. You have an agenda going back well over 20 years. Now that means that provides you the momentum to get the growth going. And the 8 to 10% is a combination of growth driven by infrastructure, growth driven by consumption, and of course the other constituents of it, whether it is services or agriculture. Those will go on for a country of our size. So I am firmly of the belief that our aspirational growth has to be set at 10. We almost certainly can reach 8%. I am quite clear that 8% is achievable. Sometimes I jokingly say that 8% we are already doing, but maybe there are an august body of accountants. So there are probably items you don't account for, and and items you don't account for. So you can make the difference. What I'm trying to say, accounted and unaccounted. So I think growth is already happening at a pace faster than what we are imagining. And then it is, I use the rule of 72. How many years will you take at 8 or 9% growth? Between 8th and 9th year you will double. So you then use that, at least for 3 turns, we will get to virtually doubling. So to me, by 2047, reaching a number of $25 billion, I think is something that we should aspire for. And that makes the per capita number change dramatically from where we are today. But the goal we have to have is 2047, 25 billion, grow at 8%, and then magic will happen.
And if we dig a little bit deeper into that question, the controller of our environment, which is the government, apart from private citizens, what should they be doing more of to, make this velocity and focus remain intact?
See, they have been doing it for now a number of years, and you can see the difference that has done. But one question has been answered very clearly, say in the last 10 years. It's been answered even earlier, because there was always a question in the mind of economics, but where is the funding going to come from? But I don't think that has ever been a challenge. So to me, that's a redundant question to ask. Where is the funding going to come from? Funding happens. Either there is between savings and investment mix changes, and then funding happens. So I'm not in that camp which says funding is a challenge. Now, if funding is not a challenge, then you need to make sure that the projects that you want to invest, not just infrastructure, but thereafter everything that a common person will use on a day-to-day basis, which the manufacturing industry has to produce, that those projects are online and those projects are getting implemented at the pace. Now again, in the last 2 or 3 years you would have heard this question, but private sector capex cycle is not happening. But that's not true, because historically the private sector capex cycle was, the proxy for it was bank lending to corporates. I'm stating it again, all of you are in the profession. Bank lending to corporates was the proxy for capex happening in the economy. That was true at a time when companies borrowed when I did project appraisals. You had one equity and you borrowed two. So debt equity was 2 to 1. Yes, of course, then bank borrowings, increase in bank borrowings, systemic lending is the only indicator that you have. Today with clean balance sheets, companies deleveraged, nobody wants to borrow even 1:1. The top 150 companies, the top 500 companies in the country hardly have any debt. They are throwing, you've seen their cash accruals, the way they have been improving. See, most things that they want now they can do through cash accruals, with small, very limited access to bank borrowings as required. So companies are growing, except that they are now investing themselves. And I think the appropriate set of people who can tell the country what is the real investment happening and the growth happening, and growth happening is, again, people who are here. Because you are signing off on the books, you know what the incremental addition to gross fixed assets is, you know what is the increase in capital work in process. If you do a sigma of, say, the 7,000 listed companies and see what is the increase in gross fixed assets and the capital work in process year on year, you will have an idea as to whether investment is happening or not by looking at incremental bank borrowing. So the things are changing, and I think, and there's one other interesting and important thing which works in favor of India. During the time I used to appraise projects, a greenfield project took 5 years. Whatever it was, heavy steel project or a small light engineering project, 4 to 5 years, because number of clearances and number of things that you would do delayed your implementation. That period, I think, for a greenfield project has now come to probably 2 years or less. But that for a brownfield project is less than a year. So companies are capable of investing just in time. They don't have to invest and wait for demand to build up. They know my capacity is now 90% utilized. In the next 1 year I can put additional capacity so that I don't run short of things. So these are going to work in favor of India. That is speed of implementation, clean balance sheets, and the ability to invest through cash flows. And of course, resort to the market, resort to bank borrowings as required.
So the next question is on lags and lags. And depending on what we are watching or what we are reading, either we see all positive news that everything's great, or we see all negative news or reports these days. And it will be great to hear from you, at a directional, strategic level as well as at an execution level. What are we lacking in the sense that we don't have enough of that, or where are we lagging in terms of speed so that we really hit the target well in time?
Yeah, you asked, I'll answer that question in a moment, but you started the question with a very interesting subject, positive news and negative news. And I learned from, my life is been of learning, I still am learning. So I learned from Mr. Wagul very early on. 96 I came in as a CEO, he was the chairman, and he said, you are on your own, and I'm going to attend only board meetings, I'm not going to sit in office. So you manage. And day one, he was out. But he gave me a bit of advice before that. He said, you should stop reading negative news. So when you know there is something negative somewhere, don't read it. Because it does nothing to you in a work context. So don't read it. Read things which you think are material, not necessarily good news, and proceed on that basis. And by and large, I have followed his advice for the last 30 years or 28 years. And that has stood me in good state. So bad news and good news, I think we need to take in with a pinch of salt. You talked about lags and can you just...
Lack of something.
Yeah, I think lack of... see, again, if you look at India and our own careers, and I would talk about 96 onwards, everything was a lack of something or other. The young people won't understand what I'm saying. And I said this somewhere in 2002, and I was virtually laughed at. I said, we had to wait 10 years for a telephone. The young people here will laugh at me. What is he talking about? 10 or 15 years for a telephone? Yeah, we did it. Your parents or grandparents' generation waited 15, 20 years to get a telephone line. You put your name in and you waited, and one fine day the guys came and said, I'm going to fix a telephone. So start with that. Do you remember how long we used to wait for a motorcycle or a scooter? The Bajaj scooter took 4 years to, for you to get one. I'm talking of again 70s or late 60s. So all those days are over. So if today we talk of lack, I think lack of something, I think we need to look at what rapidity things are changing and believe that it will change for the future. But the key here is lack in another context. We will have to grow that income, the GDP, and then it flows down to per capita levels, and that will make the change. So the final correction in the lack, LACK, will happen when incomes have risen to a level where nobody has any lag, as it were, in their incomes.
Sir, the next question is on the chartered accountancy profession. That is, a topic along with Viksit Bharat. What is the role you see, and you have worked with accountants, as you just mentioned, chartered accountants, probably all your life on the boards or, at other places as your auditors, etc. And what is the role that you see going ahead compared to what you saw in the past? What can they contribute towards this journey?
Yeah, indeed. As I said, I've been privileged to work with chartered accountants throughout my career, as colleagues, as clients, and as the profession of accountants who served us during our audit and other periods. And I thank the profession for that. The evolution that is now happening is not just for chartered accountants, but I think you are going to be right in the middle of it. So it will probably, you will, I'm sure, be leaders in absorbing and leveraging technology in a bigger way. I'll preface that by saying I'm of the view that the leader of the future, and I should say this in the context of a CEO, the CEO of the future is going to be a technology architect. But now when I look at it, I am going to say that the CFO of the future is also going to be a technology architect. Like I gave that example of my leasing business, and we didn't have titles in those days for people, but the person who ran my finance and account, he did all the technology. So today, even more so, they will be the technology architects of the future. Now that's in the corporate world. But when you come to the professional world, I think the profession is going to be, running on what I call technology rails. Because your client is running on technology rails. And everything that you do will need to be, technology ready. So I'm sure the young people who are coming into the profession are gearing up for this. And I'm sure the people who are seasoned have already taken steps to gear up for this. So I see significant change, I'm not calling it challenge, happening, because I'm equally sure that the challenge or change will be absorbed without making it look like a challenge. And that, I think, is going to be the most important thing. Along with this, what I would say is the profession is going to be, in an even more significant way, conscious keepers for the company, the conscious keeper for the public at large, and conscious keeper for the government at large. Because again, this is a phrase that I learned from another boss of mine, Chairman Mr. Narkani, who was chairman of ICICI. So he would say that when you were appraising a company, he would ask me a question. He would ask it very gently. He says, who is the conscience keeper in this company? And 9 out of 10 times, the conscience keeper was the CFO of the company. So that role is going to be even more important as we go along. So how you perform it, again, will have to be done with these new tools and not necessarily the old tools. And then you truly make everybody sleep well at night, whether it is the client, your client, whether it is the public at large or the government.
So CAs probably would be CAT, where A would represent architect and T would represent technology.
I would think that, you have coined a great phrase. I think we need to raise our hands for him. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, that is what is going to happen. And again, I repeat this. If 2 just qualified CAs could do it for me 45 years back with a machine where the floppy disk had capacity of less than 1 MB, not 1 GB, 1 MB. So if they did it, all these things, with all the power that you have today, you can, this is not a problem.
And I remember at one point ICI was one of the biggest hirers of fresh CAs. If we saw campus data coming in the Institute's magazine, we saw ICICI
Absolutely.
picking up almost all the CAs were just taken into...
From mid-80s onwards that happened,
So, sir, if I were to ask you, what do you see as, some of the goals and aspirations which can overcome some of the shortcomings of a chartered accountant? And this is a slightly a challenging question for me to ask in a gathering of chartered accountants. What would that be, apart from the technology and the conscience aspect you just mentioned?
No, I think essentially, when you talk of technology or the conscious aspect, it is the way a person looks at skilling oneself. So if you set your mind to skilling, then there is no challenge. So you will achieve it. So you need to tune not only the minds of every individual, but of your firm. Sometimes the challenge is the leader has a vision. The leader would like change to happen, but then down the line it is very rigid. So I am sure that is going to be a challenge that established firms will face to get the mindset of everybody aligned, particularly to the CAT part of it. So and I am saying that from experience in the corporate world. And experience not of CAs, but experience of young people in the organization, not necessarily old people. So, for example, everywhere I have gone, I have said that everybody in the organization has to understand the evolution of technology and how to apply that technology to your role. That is still work in process. So this is in the corporate world. So I'm sure that's going to be challenge number one, which you will overcome in a period of time. Because in your case, your client is going to ask for it, the public at large is going to ask for it, and you will make that change.
So skilling and reskilling will result in scaling.
Yeah, skilling, reskilling, scaling. But the first hurdle is changing the mindset to absorb the new and to skill yourself on that.
Thank you, sir. Before we come to the audience, this would be my last question. And this is on banking and the scale of Indian banks. And what does that indicate? When we look at the list of 100 banks, we have the largest population, we are 5th largest economy, we have, but we just have, 2 banks in top 100 banks. What does that indicate? And, is it an indicator of something?
No, I think, I don't think I will make too much about it. I'll put that into context. That is a context, that relates directly to the size of your economy. So we need to get that size to the numbers we talk about, and it will happen on its own. Even as we talk, I was just seeing a list yesterday. We have in the top 15 banks by market capitalization, we are 2 banks. Yeah. So and top 25 banks, we have 3 banks. I'm sure that number will triple in the next 10 years. And then not only in market cap, but in balance sheet size also. Because you can't build a balance sheet size till you have the economy of that size. Otherwise there will be concentration. So that's what's the current challenge. But to me it is transitionary. We will have those banks, and we should be proud of those banks.
Absolutely. I think the floor is now open for questions. We'll start with editor of the journal, Dr. Mayur Nayak.
Hello. Good evening, sir. Sir, you gave example of 3. So you gave example of Japan, China, and other Southeast Asian economies. But when we compare India, India is a very diverse country. So whether these
No, I think a very good question. Since whether the diversity and the non-homogeneity is going to impact growth. I don't think so. See, homogeneity was thought of to be an advantage in certain areas. Initially, economists held that might have contributed to growth. But when I look back, what contributed to growth was the ability to invest and the mindset to invest and implement things that you needed. And that I think we now have. So we are aligned to it. So I don't think that lack of homogeneity is... see, we are in a way democratically homogeneous. Some other countries might not be. So that creates the sort of momentum we want.
Sir, my name is Nitin. My question is beyond finance and banking. Sir, in large areas, India is now pursuing excellence. Yet in many areas, we are still mediocre. There are a lot of failings. Just said news we read is in a couple of weeks, there were 10 bridges which fell down. How do you see India pursuing quality and excellence in all fields? Because in large part, there is still chalta hai kind of attitude, and with whatever efforts the government has done, corruption has not gone away. So, belling that cat.
Yeah, I think I'll keep corruption aside for a moment. Even without necessarily, we can resolve or we can address the important question that you have asked. See, the first step at, in a way, organizing ourselves was Swachh Bharat, if you recollect. But still, there's a long way to go. My belief is that, a lot of it, I'm losing my thought. So can you repeat the question?
Pursuit of excellence.
Okay, yeah. So, I said Swachh Bharat was the start of it. A lot of it happens with discipline. So it is not chalta, it is a lack of discipline. And that lack of discipline is right from schooling, right from the institutions you attend. So when we become a technology-driven society and we become go up the per capita income base, that is going to be challenge number one we will have to face. All other challenges we will be able to meet, but this lack of discipline is one thing. Having said that, countries have come up that curve very quickly. So I can say again, because having seen China at close quarters during my previous time with the Asian Development Bank and more recently now, in a span of 20 years, not even 20 years, 15 years, they have gone from where, you can say we have these challenges from that state to where in terms of, cities or the transformation that has happened. So to me, that the lesson there is that there's something that happens with the income growth also. So, some type of discipline is required to get that growth going. Let's take examples. If 5 years back we had said, will UPI succeed in India? If chalta attitude was there, would we have been able to implement it? Answer is a categorical no. And similarly, a whole lot of things on the technology front that are happening, I think happening because people have reset their minds to do things in a different way. But you look at it in a larger civic context, there has to be mass transformation happening. And the point that you made about corruption is relevant because that also has to be addressed along with this. Otherwise that solution is not there. But even where there's no corruption, this lack of discipline is there. You get a workman home. Is there one workman who will do the work as it is supposed to be done and deliver you the product that you really are expecting without having him to come back at least 4 times to fix what should not have to be fixed at all? So what you're saying is right, but it's to me linked to discipline, and that starts with our schooling and training system. Yeah, I think focus number 1 of the government is MSMEs because that's where you have the largest employment. Because, a 1 million ton cement plant may just employ 100 people. But an MSME, each one of them may employ 100 people. So there, I would think that the government has taken a lot of steps. But the key really is to make sure that MSMEs are profitable. Because unless they are profitable, they will be over-leveraged. And that cycle has to be broken. We are getting there. But I think we have to, it is possible with modern banking. For example, one of the major problems, and you would have seen that in auditing, and I think there are some requirements now. Number of days an MSME is not paid. I think these need to be brought in by, I would say, law in a way that nobody can escape it. And that single act could make MSMEs credit worthy and could change the thing. I honestly think nothing else is required but to implement that in its totality. Something that I should have addressed earlier. Without investing in the three things that you mentioned, there is no 2047. So that's again something that we need to be conscious of. But my experience in particularly ICICI of the 2000 onwards, ICICI Bank, has shown that all these are possible for you to do yourself. I'll give an example. 2002, so I was talking of 50 branches a year. It was not a challenge. But then the next year, Reserve Bank said, you can open as many branches as you want. So we said, okay, we'll open 500 branches. So then I talked to my HR people and I said, but where are the branch managers? Our branch managers have to be technically savvy. Those are just not there because there's no other bank with this scale. So okay, so challenge number one. I said, where are the front office people? I mean, the officers in the desk. No. So he said, we will now have to skill them. And it'll take 1 minute for me to tell the story. So we gave out all our training material to NIIT, and you said you run a 6-month course, and we will absorb any number of candidates that you can put up. So first year they gave us some 5,000 or 6,000 candidates. We needed 10 or 12 per branch, so we had all our branch front officers there. We are still short of branch managers. So one of my colleagues came and said, I'm tying up with Manipal University to do a 1-year program. We will select the people on our rolls, we will put them through that program, and they will be trained as branch managers and assistant managers, including a mock branch there. And this campus came up in Bangalore, still operational. 1,000 intake, because 500 into 2 we needed. So I said, but where are the people? And then, because he said they are in vernacular India. This is rural India. This is to me my most important learning on people. So I said yes, and I said they don't have opportunity. So they probably we will find 1,000 there. So, but I told him that you will only advertise in the vernacular papers, no English advertisements, and you will give the test in vernacular and English. Let the child decide what he or she wants to do. We had 100,000 applicants, and we had about 10,000 people well over our cutoff. So we got 1,000 people who initially were not good in English, but in the year they mastered English. So and that is now, I think they've taken more than 2,000 a year from that campus. So skilling to me is a mindset issue again. If you go about it you look at it laterally, you have a solution. So every organization that thinks they have a skilling problem or can't get skilled people can skill it. Let me give Infosys example. Because of some of the challenges you mentioned, people are not trained properly. Infosys Mysore campus has got 10,000 beds, 10,000 rooms, where 10,000 students come in, whom they have recruited, and are trained for 6 months after their engineering or auto degree. So you basically are retraining them, though they had the supposedly qualified people. And that's 2 turns or 3 turns in a year. It's little less than 6 months. So they 2.5 turns. So they could get about 25,000-30,000 people through that. And then the rest of it, at that time they're taking 50,000 new people. So there are solutions. Sometimes they are costly. It is better to get this education and skilling right at the first point rather than do it later. But I think we will not fall short of that. I think people will figure out how to get this done. Thank you.
One last question.
My name is Sangeeta. I'm not a prospective CA. I'm not part of the Bombay Chartered Accountant Association. But my question to you is, you were talking about how rapidly the world can change with the advent of technology. And I think that that's going to happen again in as rapidly, if not more. As someone who, what if in 20 years, my degree, my MBBS degree is obsolete because of any technological advancement? How can I, what can I do? What skills can I acquire? How can I be valuable despite my degree being useless?
Yeah, very good question. And you don't have a 25-year horizon. Your reskilling is every 2 years. Not even 2 years, it's continuous, but I want to put a time frame, it's every 2 years. And I tell everybody, you are obsolete, I am obsolete. Not you are obsolete, I am obsolete. And I have been saying it since my ICSA days. I am obsolete every year, and I have to learn every year. But for somebody your age, if you are 18, then you have to virtually learn every day. And that will keep you current. And that will keep you current in terms of your profession and other skills. And I can tell you this, again, that you will need to also a technology architect. So there is nobody who can escape being, because you will use technology in what you're doing. So I have my son-in-law, he's a cardiologist in the US. So a few years into it, he says, I have to do a special skilling. I said, what was it? He says, I have to now work on robotic implants for, he was doing pacemakers. So it's entirely robotic. I sit, in a separate room and I basically operate on a robotic basis. So you will have to continuously skill yourself as you go along. Good luck.
Thank you.
So thank you, Mr. Kamath. I think we have really run out of time. It's already 8 o'clock, and I have one more pleasant task for you, Mr. Kamath, the release of the Bombay Chartered Accountant annual journal issue. And we released that special issue. I'll request editor Dr. Mayur Nayak to say a few words about the journal and request you to release that special issue.
Good evening, sir. Friends, as the topic for the day, Viksit Bharat, the theme for this issue of journal is celebrating 75 years of Bharat and BCS, march towards centenary. And on this theme, we have a contribution from senior advocate Amit Desai on March of Law and Judiciary. And we have a contribution from TV Mohandas Pai and Nisha Holla on the topic of accelerating India's education through technology. So with these two articles, this special issue is being made, and some more contribution is on the way. And I thank our contributors, and I thank each and everyone, all our readers and contributors all along our journey. So may I request sir to do the honor of releasing the journal. Thank you. Friends, I acknowledge Naushad's help for designing the cover of this special issue for journal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayur bhai. Friends, as we come to the closure of this event, may I now present as a mark of our memory for this momentous occasion to Shri K.V. Kamath, an instant photo frame for this event. May I request the President, Vice President and Jubin bhai to join on dais for presenting the photo frame to our esteemed speaker, Shri K.V. Kamath ji. esteemed members of the Bombay Chartered Accountant Society, distinguished guests, dignitaries on and off the dais, ladies and gentlemen. This marks the momentous occasion of the 75th year of the Bombay Chartered Accountant Society, and it is indeed our pleasure that we had 4 Padma accolades addressing our participants on various occasions, being Shri Kumar Mangalam Birla, Vishwanathan Anand, T.N. Manoharan, and as a part of the conclusion of this event, this momentous 75th year, we have Shri K.V. Kamath addressing us at this AGM. Friends, today I stand before you to express our sincere gratitude to the esteemed chief guest, Padma Bhushan Shri K.V. Kamath for gracing this occasion of the 75th founding day of the celebration of our society. The key outcome of today's discussion and what he addressed to the members, I would say, is CA of the future is a technology architect. And there are a lot of past presidents, including Amit Bhai, who have been advocating for this kind of technology implementation at BCS. Infrastructure development is one of the key indicators of Viksit Bharat. And for CA, his message is upskilling and scaling. Sir, your insightful address on the role of chartered accountants as finance professional in the Viksit Bharat was truly thought-provoking, inspiring, and served as a clarion call for all of us to strive for excellence and contribute to building a stronger and more prosperous India. We are confident that your words of wisdom will serve as a guiding light for all of us in creating institutions that will last much longer than its founders as we navigate the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. On behalf of the entire BCS family present here and virtually, I would like to thank our chief guest, Shri Padma Bhushan Shri K.V. Kamath, for gracing our founding day. Ladies and gentlemen, may I request you to join your hands for a loud round of applause.